Sup guys, it's Alex here, and welcome to the top 10 running backs for this 2020 fantasy football season. These are going to be PPR rankings, which is points per reception. So that means for every one reception that a running back gets, they earn you one fantasy point for your team. That makes running backs such as like Alvin Kamara, Kareem Hunt, Tariq Cohen, James White, all those guys more valuable than they normally would be in standard scoring, to where you'd get 0 or maybe even just a half point of PPR. That also hurts running backs such as Derrick Henry, who barely get any receptions whatsoever. So I will be going over my top 10 running back rankings in this video. If you haven't already, go check out the mock draft that I did on Monday. I will be doing mock draft Mondays from here through the beginning of the season, to where I'll hop in a mock draft, maybe involve some subscribers. We'll kind of see what happens with it, but I just show my thoughts on how certain positions in the draft works. From this one, I did the 6th spot, I believe, and then I'll just kind of see how the rest go in the future on these mock draft Mondays. It only has 89 views right now. Hopefully they'll get more in the future, but if you want to hear my thoughts on a lot more players than just these running backs, make sure you go check out that video. And without any further ado, let's go ahead and kick off these rankings. Up first, this one was completely obvious. We have Christian McCaffrey, running back for the Panthers. Absolutely killed it last season. If he's not your first overall pick, I don't know what you are doing, especially in PPR, to where he's basically two players. He's the typical running back, and then he basically plays wide receiver too. I think he averaged about 30 points a game or something like that last year. It was absolutely insane. If you had him, there was a very good chance you were either in the playoffs or you actually won your championship. The only player I could maybe see challenging him for the first overall pick, and especially in these redraft leagues, is Saquon Barkley. But other than that, Christian McCaffrey should be your easy number one overall pick. Look at this. Last year, he had the second best fantasy season ever, 471 points. What more could you want from your guy? Not a whole lot is going to change this year for Christian McCaffrey. ESPN is projecting him for 331 points, which if you take a look at last year, that's 140 points less. But even at 331 points, he is by far the best running back or wide receiver, any flex position whatsoever. The next closest, I think, in the ESPN projections is Zeke, but he's 30 points less, which is almost 2 points per game less. The drop-off from the 1 to 2 position in the running back rankings, for me at least, is just pretty tremendous. Taking a look at the outlook, yeah, he is going to have a new coach in Matt Rule. Yeah, he is going to have a new quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater, but Teddy Bridgewater is an accurate quarterback. He will be looking to dump it off to McCaffrey a ton, as he exemplified last year with both Kamara and Latavius Murray over there in New Orleans. And then with a new offensive system in there, he'll be able to see what Matt Rule, who was the coach of Baylor and completely turned around that program. I am looking forward to seeing how this season goes for Christian McCaffrey. Should be the easy number one overall pick, as you can see, and especially taking a look at his 2020 projections, threatening 100 receptions, which is just insane for a running back. He had 116 last year. Similar numbers expected for this year. He is my number one running back and should be yours as well. At number 2, we have Saquon Barkley, or if you want to call him Saquad Barkley, with his insane quads that he's been working on throughout the course of this offseason as well. He lands at number 2 here in PPR scoring. He was the number 1 overall pick last year. I know in my main league, the eventual champion ended up picking Saquon Barkley with the number 1 pick, and then ended up taking Antonio Brown with the last pick of the 2nd round, but that's another story for another day. But here we have Saquon at number 2. In my review of having Christian McCaffrey at the number 1 spot, I mentioned that the only person I could see taking over McCaffrey here is Saquon Barkley, and that's just because Saquon, I think, is one of the best, if not the best, pure runners in the league. He is super young as well. This will be his 3rd season in the NFL, and if you have the 2nd overall pick, a lot of people I know have either Saquon or Zeke, one of those two flip-flopped at the 2 spot. But for me, it is a clear number 2 pick here with Saquon Barkley. In the last 4 weeks of the regular season, not counting Week 17, which for fantasy purposes doesn't really matter unless you have a Week 17 championship game, he had the most fantasy points out of any running back in half PPR scoring. Not sure about PPR scoring, but either way, it'd be right up there near the top, if not at the exact top. He was averaging 23 points a game in half PPR scoring, which means it'd be even higher in PPR scoring. He is a league winner if he goes off the top RB1 from that span. Last season, he did deal with a few injuries. I think he had an ankle sprain. Can't remember if that's exactly the reason why he was injured, but either way, it cost him a couple games. I know Wayne Gallman ended up starting. So there is just a tad bit of injury risk for Saquon Barkley, but I trust his training. He is normally pretty durable. I think he played all 16 games of his rookie season, and his talent is just off the charts. Now, Saquon does have a new offensive coordinator coming in Jason Garrett, former head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. But while Garrett was in Dallas, he had a propensity to use his workhorse running back in Zeke Elliott. Zeke is going to be my number 3, kind of a spoiler alert there. But he loves to use his workhorse running back. I have no issue or whatever with Saquon's volume over the course of this season. I think he'll be a great workhorse back, get a lot of touches, a lot of volume, both in the passing game. As you can see, he's projected to catch 58 passes, getting 2 touchdowns through the air, similar receiving totals to last year. But he is only projected 286 points in ESPN scoring. I think that's like number 5 or 6 among running backs. I think he easily tops that. I think he is able to get above 300, maybe even threaten 320, which is about 20 fantasy points a game. That is a positional advantage every single week in the fantasy season. I think he's a great pick as the number 2 overall running back and as the number 2 overall player in fantasy this year. Up next at number 3, we have Ezekiel Elliott, running back for the Dallas Cowboys. He has been a model of consistency throughout the course of his 4 seasons so far in the league, with 3 of those, I think, finishing in the top 6 of running backs, with the other one being the one where he got suspended for a few games with that whole situation. I think that was 2018 or something like that. But other than that, last season he was the only running back to not have a single bust game. He was in the top 25, I think, every single week, either top 25 or top 36, one of those two, I can't exactly remember, but he did not bust at all. He maybe wasn't the most exciting or flashy high scorer. I think his top point total for a single week totaled out around 33 points, which is still fantastic, but other than that, you have a high floor and a potentially high ceiling with Ezekiel Elliott, one of the top 3 running backs in the league. A bit of a teardrop off to number 4, which I'll get to here in a few minutes, but Zeke is a clear number 3 to me. Building on that, Justin Dodds from Locked In Football mentioning how Zeke has finished as a top 5 running back in every season that he's played 15 or more games, and minus that one where he had gotten suspended. He's never had an injury there where he's missed significant time, where he's missed more than 1 or 2 games at a specific point in time, and also mentioning that Zeke is as safe as a pick that you can get. As I mentioned earlier, he has a super high floor, model of consistency, no bust games last year. He is a safe pick at the 3 spot. Taking a look at his projections now, he's getting pretty similar stats to last year, just under 300 projected fantasy points from ESPN. Just like Saquon, I do think he reaches above it, maybe getting that 310 range, something like that. Very similar stats both in the receiving and rushing game as last year. Will drop off just a little bit in the rushing game just because the Cowboys are adding more passing weapons in CeeDee Lamb and then potentially Blake Jarwin. We'll kind of see what happens as that develops. Jarwin's one of Mike from the Fantasy Footballers' top guys. But I really like Zeke this year as a top 3 pick. You can't go wrong with getting Zeke here at the 3 spot, or even Saquon if he falls to the 2. So then at number 4, we have probably my favorite player. I am a fan of the Indianapolis Colts, but other than the Colts, Alvin Kamara, Super Camario, whatever you want to call him. He is probably my favorite player, if not my favorite fantasy player out there in the NFL. At number 4 here in the rankings, PPR monster. Now, he's not known to get a ton of rushing work, especially with Latavius Murray here in this offense, and then historically you had Mark Ingram there. But not getting that rushing totals isn't going to affect him, because in his 3 seasons, he has 81 receptions in each and every one of them. He is a PPR monster, a guy I am targeting with my main league and most of my my other money leagues at the 4 spot. Mike Tagliere from the Fantasy Pros noting that other than CMC, Kamara has more boom games than anybody else to where you get 25 plus PPR points. I know Kamara's had a ton to where he gets in that 35 to even like 42 point range PPR games. He is the PPR legend, topping 25 PPR points in 14 of 45 career games. I know last year he didn't really have a great season. Only I think up until like week 13, he only had 2 total touchdowns, which is just absolutely crazy. I know he had a high ankle sprain that did play into it just a little bit, but I think that he's going to have tremendous regression back to the mean in that touchdown department, maybe threatening 10 total touchdowns, maybe even 14. Who knows what's going to happen? Maybe we'll get some more goal line work and some receiving touchdowns touchdowns, as he will be a little bit more explosive with that injury healing completely. He is my guy for this season in the first round. I mean, as you can see, ESPN has him getting 11 total touchdowns, again threatening that 300 mark total for the fantasy points, which I think he does have a chance to cross. Maybe not as much of a chance as Saquon or Zeke, which is why I have him at the number 4 spot, but I think he could easily get it, especially if he does top that 81 reception yard mark total. I am super excited for his fantasy prospects over the course of this season, and he should definitely have a bounce back year and get that Super Camario nickname back for himself. So up next at number 5 in these PPR running back rankings, we have Dalvin Cook, running back for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, he did go down with an injury near the end of the year, but from I think like weeks 1 through 12 or 13 to the point to where he got injured, he was an absolute monster. I think he was the number 2 running back throughout the course of that span, and when you're the number 2 running back behind CMC, you have nothing to be ashamed of. He was a league winner for a lot of seasons, or at least to get them to the playoffs. Maybe not a league winner once he got to the playoffs, but he was a great pick. I think he was going in the back of the second, top of the third last year. He will definitely not be making that far in your leagues. Maybe he'll make it down to like 7 or 8. I cannot see him falling more past that. He is my number 5 overall player and my number 5 running back. Now, part of the reason why Dalvin Cook was such a beast last year was because he got a ton of rushing volume with Kevin Stefanski being there, I think, as the OC in Minnesota last year. The Vikings were 100% a run-first team. I mean, in one game, Kirk Cousins only attempted 10 passes, which means Dalvin Cook got a lot of rushing volume there. And with Kevin Stefanski leaving to go to the Browns, there was a bit of a question about whether the Vikings may transition back more towards a pass-first offense. But now with Gary Kubiak being installed as the official offensive coordinator, I think he was a consultant to the team last year, those worries have been assuaged, or however you pronounce that word. You don't have to worry about it anymore. And especially with Stephon Diggs leaving, there will be a target vacuum for all of his targets. I think he had about 90 to 100 targets last year. So some of those will be going to the running back positions. Running backs typically get about 20% of vacated targets in the offense, so Dalvin Cook's receiving totals are going to go up as well. I really like Dalvin Cook here. He is a pretty good pass catcher, more known for his rushing, but he is a serviceable pass catcher too. Maybe serviceable is cutting him too short there. We'll kind of see what happens about that. But taking a look here at the ESPN projections for his season, he is projected to get 287 points here on ESPN. Definitely a threat to cross that 300-point threshold, similar to Alvin Kamara, but I'm just not 100% sold on him being one of those guys that can cross the 300-point totals. As you can see, he has missed 19 games over the course of his first 3 seasons in the league, and I think he missed an entire one last year, or maybe his freshman year with the torn ACL. But he is just a bit too much of an injury risk for me to put him in that top 4. I know a lot of people like him over Kamara if you were to stay healthy, and I mean, I can see that, especially with him proving that last year. But I just don't have faith in him being healthy for the entire season. And if you get 12 to 13 weeks out of him to get you to the playoffs, and then you can get a guy off at free agency, or maybe even get Alexander Mattison in the back half of the draft, maybe like the 10th round or something, and then have him for those playoffs, I think he is definitely worth the 6th overall pick or the 5th overall pick, wherever you want to get him. So at number 6, we have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, rookie running back out of LSU. And man, the hype train for CEH has just been blowing through the train station, if you want to call it that, throughout the course of this offseason. Starting the offseason, he was ranked around like the late 30s, early 40s range in the ESPN rankings and just rankings across the industry. But once Damian Williams, which was the presumed starter for the Chiefs, opted out, CEH has been skyrocketing up the rankings. I'm 100% behind that, and he's just handpicked by Patrick Mahomes to be the starting running back for the Chiefs. Their first pick in the draft, even though they already had Damian Williams. Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes wanted to take this guy with their pick. CEH is playing for a perfect coach here with Andy Reid. Think of these PPR monsters and studs under Andy Reid. You have Brian Westbrook, LaShawn McCoy, Jamal Charles, Kareem Hunt. I mean, now with CEH coming in as a pass-catching back, what more could you want out of a rookie? This is like the best place he could have fallen into. Patrick Mahomes is perfectly okay with dumping it off if he needs to, or if CEH wants to run a wheel route and go all the way to the end zone, he can do that. He can run straight up the middle as the opposing defenses will be trying to play against the pass, and especially off that play action. I think CEH is a great pick here. Taking a look at his ESPN projections, he is projected to get 243 fantasy points, which this is where the drop-off does start from where you get Dalvin, who can threaten 300, to these guys with CEH kind of starting this new tier to where he can threaten maybe like 260, 270 max. There is a bit of a tier drop here, which I forgot to mention at the beginning of the transition between Dalvin Cook and CEH, but he can threaten 1,000 rushing yards. Just depends on the amount of rushing volume he gets, because as you can see, he's projected to get only 202 carries. Receiving work, if he can crack 50 or 60 receptions, he should be good to go, and he's projected to get double-digit touchdowns in total. He should be a beast here, and I am all on that CEH hype train. Louis Riddick from ESPN did take CEH with his number 1 overall pick, and I have seen him going pretty high. I wouldn't be that hyped with him, especially being a rookie, but I mean, if you want to do that, go for it. So up next at number 7 now in our top 10 running back rankings, we have Josh Jacobs, sophomore running back for the Oakland Raiders. I guess I shouldn't say Oakland Raiders, I should say Las Vegas Raiders now, and it sucks that they won't have any fans for their new stadium in Las Vegas. But man, I am so excited to see what he's ready to bring this season. Last year, he almost won Rookie of the Year. It was basically a coin flip between him and Kyler Murray from the Cardinals. And I mean, Kyler Murray does play the most valuable position in football at quarterback, so that's probably why he ended up getting it. But John Gruden, coach of the Raiders, it's been reported that he is pissed off that Josh Jacobs did not win, and he is going to stick it to all those voters and use Josh Jacobs tremendously here, or big time, getting a ton of volume, whatever you want to say, this season. I know that Josh Jacobs did not get a ton of work in the passing game, and that's where a lot of people aren't really looking at him this season. I know in a couple drafts he's been falling to the late second, maybe even third round. I know at one point ESPN even had him ranked at 29, which is about midway through the third round in a 12-team league, and that's just way too low, especially when you consider this quote by Josh Jacobs just a couple of days ago. My goal is to catch at least 60 balls this year. Now, as I mentioned, he was not known for being a receiving back. Last season, as you can see, he only caught 20 passes for 166 yards. But if you factor in that extra 40 points just on receptions, not on yards or not on potential touchdowns that could come from that, his value will skyrocket if he could hit that. I know last year he didn't even get a single touchdown, and I think in his ESPN projections, he is projected only 36 receptions, as you can see here, with 1 receiving touchdown. If he can add 24 more receptions on top of that, his fantasy point total projection would jump up to like 260, 270, right up there with CEH, as I had mentioned. Man, I am super excited to see what he can bring. I mean, I would even be willing to take him at the 8 or 9 spot in an actual draft, maybe even above Devontae Adams. I'd say that's probably where I'd be questioning whether I want to take him or Devontae. But as my running back 8, or not my running back 8, as my running back 7, he is a great pick, and I think he has a great season ahead of him. He could break into that top tier with Kamara and Dalvin Cook. It would be interesting to see what happens. Just depends on his usage, and if he can get some more passing work volume, he will be a fantasy stud. So up next we have Derrick Henry at number 8, former Heisman winner, breakout last year. I think before the season in fantasy rankings, he was ranked like 49, 50, somewhere around that range in the draft rankings. But last year, he absolutely broke out, got a huge contract from Tennessee over the course of the season, or the offseason. He will be the foundation of their offense. He is a monster rusher. I mean, last year, I think he was the rushing leader in the NFL. And he's not much of a PPR back, which is why he's falling a bit here in these PPR rankings, I'd say. In standard, he would probably be like the running back 4. Even I'd put him above Kamara in standard ones. But as we are playing PPR, those receiving backs are a bit more valuable here. But man, he can break off a 99-yard touchdown, as I think he did against Jacksonville. He will turn the defenses into blockers, just like he did with Earl Thomas from the Ravens. He is one of those guys that you know you're going to get a good performance from him every single week. I mean, last year he led the league in rushing yards with the 1,746 and then 18 total touchdowns. Maybe those total touchdowns does regress a little bit back here this season, but even if he gets maybe 11, 12 rushing touchdowns, maybe even gets a passing touchdown like he did, I think it was in the playoffs last year, to where he just did a little flea flicker into the end zone, still ended up with more touchdown passes than Lamar Jackson that game, I believe. But he will be a fantasy stud here. Back end of the first round pick, I mean, I don't know if I would take him here in a PPR over Devontae or maybe even Julio. I think I'd probably still go Henry over Julio just for reference. But taking a look here at his ESPN projections, he is only projected to get 12 touchdowns over the course of the season, and my bad, the 1,746 yards was a combination of both his rushing and receiving work. He is expected to get just a slight uptick in receiving volume here, but he is supposed to get 15 less carries. But I mean, either way, he is projected to be a monster this year. Don't know if he'll crack 294 points like he did last year, but if he's projected 250 points and as an RB8, I mean, he is definitely worth a late round pick to me. Which now leads us to my number 9 running back for this 2020 fantasy football season. We have Joe Mixon, running back here for the Cincinnati Bengals, and I'm sure this will be a pretty polarizing choice. I am super high on Mixon this year. I mean, the way he ended last year, I know the beginning of the year was absolutely awful. I don't think he got more than like 18 or 20 carries in like any of the first 6 games as Zach Taylor was trying to figure out what to do with the offense. But as the season did progress, I mean, at one point, I'll go ahead and say this, in my main fantasy league, I was able to trade away Larry Fitzgerald for Joe Mixon at some point in the season. I mean, Joe Mixon was getting dropped in some leagues. His stock was so low, but once that turn over the course of the season hit and Zach Taylor realized that if you feed Joe Mixon the ball, he will produce. I mean, he produced, and that is why I am super high on him here as my RB9. I mean, once Taylor started giving him the ball, he was averaging nearly 100 yards a game on the ground, as you can see, 98, and then scoring 6 total touchdowns. And this offense is going to be completely transformed over the course of this new season, with Joe Burrow coming in, who absolutely lit the college football world on fire last year. Consensus number 1 overall pick. And then you got A.J. Green coming back from injury and opening up the offense just a little bit more, both for rushing work for Joe Mixon, opening up those lanes as defenses expect more passes, and also open up the lanes more for Joe Mixon as a receiving back too, as the linebackers shift more towards A.J. Green and Tyler Boyd and all of them being able to stretch the field just a little bit more. Mixon will have some more room to work with, and I think his efficiency and workload will both increase over the course of this offseason. Taking a look here at his ESPN projections over the course of the season, expected to get 10 more rushing yards, 2 additional touchdowns on the ground, and then receiving work is going to be similar to last year with 1 receiving touchdown coming from that. I think ESPN is shortchanging him here, only projected to get 229 fantasy points over the course of the season. I think he can break 250 with the pace he was setting, with the way he finished last year, and with the new opportunities coming through this much improved offense with Burrow coming in, A.J. Green coming back, Zach Taylor finally figuring out what he can do with this game, and then Jonah Williams even coming back, I think is his name, off of being injured for the entire season last year on that offensive line. I think Mixon and the Bengals offense as a whole will be much better than last year, much more productive, much more efficient, much more effective, whatever you want to call it, and he is one of those my guys. I think he's going like number 25 overall in ESPN drafts right now. I think he deserves to be even number 9 or 10. Actually, number 9 or 10 may be a little bit high, maybe like number 12 or 13 overall, but I would be willing to take a late round first, early round 6 on him. He is one of those guys that will surprise people this year and make his way into that RB1 conversation. So then now we have, rounding out our top 10 running back rankings, we have number 10, Miles Sanders, running back for the Philadelphia Eagles, and he is just one of those guys that I don't really know how to rank over the course of the season. History with Doug Peterson tells us that Doug Peterson loves his running back by committee approach, and even last year with Jordan Howard there, it started out as a running back by committee, but he has also not had a guy like Miles Sanders. As soon as Jordan Howard went down with an injury in I think it was week 8, Miles Sanders took off and took over that Philadelphia backfield, and he is a PPR giant as well. He is a great receiving back, should get a ton of work here, especially with all the injuries that Philadelphia deals with their receiving core, with Alshon Jeffrey probably not going to be playing to start the season, Deshaun Jackson always getting injured, Rager not really being proven as a rookie coming in, Greg Ward, don't really know if he's going to make much of an impact over the course of the season, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, not going to be much of a factor. Really, You only got Ertz there in the receiving game, and I guess Goddard a little bit there too in the end zone. But Sanders as a whole should get a ton of work here in the passing game. Taking a look at last year, as you can see, once he took over that Philadelphia backfield, he was the RB6 on a per-game basis from weeks 9 to 16, and then, of course, that week 17 is always just up in the air, but it just matters whether you're in playoff contention or not, and I'm not sure if he played that week or not. I can't remember, but even with Boston Scott having a fantastic end of the season near the end of last year, I'm not sure how much of a role Boston Scott will play, especially with Miles Sanders being the clear number one guy there. Taking a look here at his ESPN projections, he is expected to get projected to get 241 fantasy points over the course of the season, projected to cross that 1,000-yard mark rushing, projected to get double-digit touchdowns. What more could you want out of an RB1? He is my RB10 for this season. And in a 12-team league, even in a 10-team league, that means he deserves to be your RB1 as well, whether that be you take him at the end of the first round or early second round. Right now, I think his ADP on ESPN is like 21 or something like that, which is way too low. If you're getting him at pick number 21 in your own fantasy league, definitely you're smashing that draft button right there. He is a great value at that position, and I think he's going to surprise a lot of people this year. I know Miles Sanders, to the casual NFL fan, he's not really a proven name. He's one of those guys, kind of like Chris Godwin before last season, that the fantasy community loves, but overall the casual people may not know his name. He is going to be one of those guys. He's a flag plant player, maybe not for me, but for a lot of people he is that flag plant player. So to summarize my top 10 running back rankings, we have CMC at the 1, Saquon number 2, Zeke number 3, Kamara number 4, Dalvin number 5, CEH number 6, Josh Jacobs number 7, Derrick Henry number 8, Joe Mixon number 9, and then Miles Sanders number 10. Let me know if I missed somebody that you really like and you consider to be a top 10 guy. Let me know if I mentioned a guy here that you think is an absolute horrible pick as a top 10 guy and should be near like running back 20 or something like that. Guys that I did consider for the top 10 would be like Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, Kenyon Drake, Austin Eckler. Those guys are probably, and then there's a big tier break between like Gurley and Carson, Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, Fournette, Melvin Gordon, all those guys. But yeah, let me know if I missed anybody here in the top 10 that you really like. Let me know if you want to see a running backs rankings between 11 and 20. Let me know if you want to see a wide receiver 1 through 10 as well. I think I may end up making that one, even if there's no demand for it. I'll just throw it out there because I love talking about fantasy football. There will be a subscriber fantasy league to come, so make sure you subscribe to the channel for that. More information will come near the end of August on that. Let me know if you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I will see you all later.